Hey, welcome to this video. This video is a reply to the discussion topic in the forum for Mobile Programming 1 about virtual currency. Besides the article that post linked to, the other primary source for this video is the YouTube series Extra Credits, and especially their recent video about video games and gambling. There will be a link to that around somewhere. Alright, and a disclaimer, I am not an expert in this topic. If I come off sounding like I think I am an expert in this topic, it's not on purpose. But yeah, so first I'm going to talk just a little bit about microtransactions and specifically my experience with them, which is very limited compared to probably a lot of people. And then I'm going to talk about the specific examples from the article and about how implementing those kinds of systems could potentially be good for certain kinds of games. Alright, before I get into my experience with microtransactions, I did want to say, Matt, your post was great. I really thought it was good, much better than the other Matt's post, though I can't remember which one of you posted first. That's a joke, by the way. I do remember. But yeah, as far as I can remember, I've only ever spent my own money out of pocket on microtransactions in one game, and that was MechWarrior Online. Basically, I played it for about a year. I spent maybe $10 on it, and then I played it for another year and spent like another $10 on it. There was a special getcha reward for, hey, if you've spent at least some money this year, we'll give you an extra bonus. So I got those two bonuses 2 years in a row, and I felt like that made it a pretty good deal. I've also played a fair bit of Hearthstone and a fair bit of League of Legends, but I've never spent money on either of those games. But if there was like a really cool League of Legends t-shirt or something, I might be willing to buy that. Now, the thing about all three of those games is that they're not pay to win, even though they're free to play and they do have microtransactions. Pretty much all of this stuff that has a gameplay effect can be gotten if you're just playing the game for free. And I would say that that's really the most important thing for a free-to-play game with microtransactions, is that the balance is still maintained between the free players and the non-free players as far as power level, etc. And that's pretty much just what Extra Credits has been saying for the past 4 years, so, you can check out their videos. There'll be a link somewhere. And speaking of links, I think now would be a really good time for a visual pun. Alright, so, not that that was original or anything, like everybody does that, but sorry for that. Let's move on to the other bit, which was the specific examples from the article and about how some of those systems could potentially be good for certain games. In my opinion, user-generated content has the potential to be good for pretty much everybody involved. The original developer doesn't have to invest as much time, energy, and capital into creating content for their game, because the user developers, the people who are creating content for your game and then selling it in some sort of in-game store, are getting paid real-world money to make content for your game. So that's a pretty strong incentive for at least some people to try and do that, so long as the players are willing to pay for it. And then the players, they get more content than they otherwise would. So potentially good all around. Just would have to be a certain kind of game, probably online multiplayer for sure, and there'd be other logistics involved to making it work, but to my knowledge, there are very few games that have actually pulled this off. And speaking of pulling things off, let's talk about marketplaces. When Diablo 3 first launched, it had a in-game gold and a real-world currency auction house for players to trade items between each other. And eventually it was taken down, it was shut down. And I'm gonna pull up the FAQ from Blizzard and just read what they have posted about it. So question, why is the auction house system being removed from Diablo 3? Answer, the gold and real money auction houses have provided a convenient and secure system for trading, but it's also become increasingly clear that despite the benefits they provide, they ultimately undermine Diablo's core gameplay. A big part of Diablo is the thrill of battling demons and finding epic loot, and it goes on to basically just say, we feel like the auction system makes the game less fun for everybody, so that's why we're taking it down. Now, I wasn't playing Diablo 3 at the time, I actually still haven't, so I don't know the whole story, and there may have been another real reason why the auction house came down, and either way, I'm not saying that Blizzard made the right call, I'm just saying that even if you ignore the hassle of the regulations behind being a money transmitter, there's still potential gameplay concerns to where it might not be a good idea one way or the other. But like Extra Credits said about in the video I already mentioned, there are some reasons for it, right? It can give players a sense of agency, the fact that their trading affects the economy of the world and other players. It can be an incentive for social interaction and cooperation, and it can just make items in the world feel more valuable, which can be a really good thing as well. So, pros and cons either way. I think that player economies is one of the more complicated situations all around and should not be entered into lightly. Alright, so the next example from the article was gifting, and for this part of the video I actually have a video aid. So gifting shares a lot of the same problems as marketplaces do, but it's kind of like when you just create a character in Terraria and you log into a friend's world and you don't really have anything, but they've already pretty much beaten the whole game. So they just give you literally everything you need to beat all of the toughest bosses. And it's like, oh, it's all this cool stuff. That's kind of awesome. I have like fiery armor and swords that shoot rainbows. But the fact that your friend just gave it to you really in a lot of ways makes the experience less compelling than if you had earned it yourself. So that's a thing. But since the items in Terraria are not microtransactions anyway, and they can never be cashed out, it's not a good example for the money transmitter side of things, but I do think it is a good example for the game balance side of things. If you're just talking about should you become a money transmitter, the more interesting example is if you have a game where there are certain levels or areas of the world that can only be accessed if you pay real-world money to get them. In that case, it's a really good idea for the developer to be able to allow players to gift access to those areas to each other, so that if your friend hasn't bought that particular level, you can still play together if you have an extra one to gift. Doing that could potentially make you a money transmitter though, and either way, I think that the better solution is most likely just to make it so that if one player has access to a piece of content, anyone in their party can also access it even if they haven't bought it themselves. And then just adjust the price of that DLC or key or whatever it is to compensate for the fact that not 100% of your players will have to buy that content in order to actually access it. Alright, that's pretty much all of my thoughts about gifting. I'm going to talk real quick about merchandising, although I haven't really ever seen a game that has the kind of merchandise or reward point system that the article talked about. All I'm going to say is that I do think a system where you could cash out points for an amiibo-like collectible thing would be potentially really cool, and I think that maybe there's a reasonably sized market that would be interested in that sort of thing, so maybe we'll see something like that in the future. I don't know. And that's it. This video went a little bit longer than I intended, and I know I got wordy at pretty much every part where I was using words. But I do thank you for sticking all the way through, and I hope that you enjoyed this video and or potentially got something out of it. Let me know what your thoughts on all of this are, and I look forward to interacting with you on the forum or elsewhere. Have a good one.